Hi everybody, welcome back once again to the Eastfield Gunroom YouTube channel with me, Matthew Morgan. As ever, the video is proudly sponsored by the British Shooting Show, the largest event in the British shooting calendar. If you do enjoy these videos, please do give us a like, please do hit subscribe, because as ever, each week we want to bring you fantastic content and you can help. So today's review is yet another first for the channel. It's a manufacturer we haven't yet featured. Here at Eastfield Gunroom, we like to give you the whole array of manufacturers from A to Z. We've done AOA, so today we're going to look at Zoli. I tell a lie, we have looked at one of these guns previously. It was a Kronos model down at Harperfield in one of our auction videos. Do check those out. But today we're going to look at the Z Sport, which is the premium range of their competition shotguns. A little bit of history about Zoli. Although the company dates back to kind of the 15th century in terms of firearms manufacture, the current part of the Zoli family, we're talking about 1945, and sort of throughout the 80s and 90s, they made a load of guns that were imported previously by a guy called Stephen Fawcett here in the UK. It was then taken on by Edgar Brothers back in about, I think about 2011 or 12. And with the current range of guns, they've really ramped up the build quality and certainly the desirability. Over in the States, they are massive, not as big here in the UK, but they are demanding much more of a following. So Zoli are based, no surprise here, in the Gardoni Valtrompia region of Brescia, with the likes of Beretta, Cesar Guerini, Rizzini, etc. It's a family-run business, currently owned by a gentleman called Paolo Zoli. I was very fortunate enough to visit the factory back about 25 years ago and to kind of meet the people and get their real passion for gun making. It's really nice because, you know, on the whole, they are a much smaller scale production manufacturer than a lot of the big boys like Beretta, Cesar Guerini, etc. So, like I said, the Z Sport come out about 2011, 2012, and what it did is it elevated Zoli's kind of standard model gun, which is called the Kronos, right up to the likes to be able to compete with kind of DT11, Perazzi MX8, and that was always their goal. So we'll start with the action, and this is a Boss style action, so it's very low profile, like a Perazzi, like a Yieldix. We've looked at both of those guns on the channel, and because this is Italian made, it kind of like mimics the Perazzi in many ways. So you've got very low profile action, which of course the idea behind that is, of course, it reduces the overall height of the gun and it increases the balance of the gun. And from 20-30 yards, you might go, oh, that looks like a Perazzi because it's got a black action. Obviously, it's got a big gold Z on the side, which stands for Zorro. We're all a big fan of that TV show. Actually, it stands for Z Sport, and that just kind of denotes the fact that it's not the Kronos model, but there's a lot more differences between the Kronos and the Z Sport, which of course commands a much different price point. So let's look at those. So we've got to start with very nice blued action with the gold Z. It's plain, it's a competition gun. It's not about embellishments. Yes, if you want to buy a Krieg off at 20-30 grand with laser engraving on, or a DT11 EELL, that's absolutely your choice. But ultimately, we buy these guns to go out, break clays, and they don't need to look that ornate. On the underside of the action, we've got the continuation of this very deep quality, deep luster bluing with a Z in a little vignette. We've got Sport, nicely engraved, nice and subtle, picked out in black. And then the trigger guard and group itself is heavily engraved. We've got some sort of floral designs with a plain trigger guard. Now, one of the features of all the modern day Zolis, whether it's a Kronos or a Z Sport, is they all have detachable trigger groups, like an MX8, like a DT10, like a DT11. Only the difference with the Z Sport is there's a lot more care and attention and a lot more technology that goes into that trigger group in terms of the coatings on the working parts, which ultimately gives you extra longevity of that shotgun. The trigger itself is adjustable, simply adjusted by an Allen key and a grub screw setup. And if we turn the gun over, we've got a very nice slim design top lever, which has got some stippling on the top, which we all know stippling is for anti-glare. It creates that kind of matte finish. The back strap is completely plain apart from two very fine lines of border engraving. And we've got a nice chunky positive selector. The trigger operation on this gun is inertia operated, which is exactly the same as all of the Zolis. So we move on to the barrels. You'll notice this is not a flat rib sporting gun. Now, you can get a Z Sport in a flat rib, in a mid rib, or in a high rib. This is the high rib. So in appearance, it's not that different to the Browning 725 Pro Master that we reviewed. Do check that out if you haven't seen it and you're looking for a high rib gun. We've got a fully adjustable high ventilated rib, about 12 to 15 mil. And Again, I refer back to the Browning ProMaster. This is fully adjustable for point of impact. So what you do is you slacken the grub screw off right at the front of the rib, and you can turn this little wheel, which will move it up and down. As ever, this is always best suited when teamed up, if you like, with a Monte Carlo adjustable stock, because you've got that maximum amount of adjustability, which we'll look at shortly when we talk about the wood. So I'm going to take the barrels off now. This is a 32-inch gun, also available in 29.5 was the standard barrel length, although they may have moved on to a true 30. Let's not forget that on the continent, particularly in Italy, a lot of manufacturers have always had this kind of fascination with these mid-range barrel lengths, 29.5, 30.75, etc. Primarily that would come, of course, from Perazzi, but in the Zoli case, it's 29.5 and 32. Now, we've got a ventilated mid-rib. So the barrels weigh 1577 grams, 1.577 kilos. On Zolis, they don't stamp the barrel weight, so I've put them onto my magic kitchen scales where I measure out all my ingredients for baking, and that's what it comes out as. So from a long barrel gun, 32-inch, the barrels aren't super heavy. It's about what you'd expect, and as you would definitely expect in this modern day and age, we've got steel shot proofing, stamped up CIP and fleur-de-lis, so no problem whatsoever with steel shot. At the business end, we've got an extended Zoli own manufactured choke with these cool little green bands, little nil bit, so as well as the castellations inside the choke to get the choke key in, you've also got an added bit of grip should you get it stuck if you don't clean it. The rib will typically have come with a centre bead and a fluorescent foresight bead. However, the previous owner has removed these because there's a lot of people that do actually like to remove the beads from the shotgun rib. And in terms of the actual taper, it's got a very slight taper, I would say about 7 to 11 mil, but I do believe you can also get one with an 11 mil parallel rib. Nice little finishing touch. We've got the Zoli Z, Zorro, branded bit on top of the rib. In terms of adjustability, I've already mentioned it's done from the front, whereas of course with some guns that have got adjustable high ribs, they can be moved from the back and the front and then locked into place. Again, you look at the back of the block and you think that looks very Perazzi-esque. It's very neat and very sleek in its design. Slightly different ejector mechanism, engine turning. Another nice touch on the actual monoblock itself is got 1276, which of course is 12 gauge with 76 mil chambers, which is 3-inch. Now, this gun actually weighs 8 pounds 7 ounces. So when you think of a big heavy gun with a big rib, it's not actually that heavy. Zoli do offer a barrel and stock balancing system for some of their guns. They've got this very ingenious thing called a B2B, where you can actually change the weight of the stock in the grip in the hand, so that gives you a different pivot point in terms of having weights in the back of the stock. They also do a barrel balancing system that's not available for this gun, but it is available for the Z Extra and the Z XL Evo. But from a balance point of view, at 8 pounds 8 ounces, look at that. And what that does mean is it means that this is not an enormous brute of a gun like something like a big Krieger for a really, really big heavy Guarini potentially. And although you've got, it's a high rib gun, it's going to be marketed for kind of sporting and trap shooters. Because of its kind of mid-weight, if you like, it does make it a very usable gun. And if you really wanted to have a talking point, you can take it game shooting. So on to the back end. Now, as I said, for me, high adjustable ribs always work well, or any kind of high rib, with a Monte Carlo adjustable stock. This one is brilliant. We've got a nice, not overly thick, but thick enough pistol grip, nice and long in the profile. So even if you've got very big hands, you should still find this quite a comfortable gun to hold. Double point checkering. One thing I've always noticed with Zolis in particular is I don't know what they do in terms of the process for their checkering, but they all seem to be very sharp points on the end. So if you have got particularly rough hands and you're not a pen pusher like I am, then just be very mindful of that, because you can just take the top off some of those points. The stock length is 15 inches, including this ventilated trap style pad, which is good because you've probably got about 14.25 actual wood. You can, of course, change the length should you require something longer, shorter, whatever. And the wood is very typical of what you would expect on a competition gun. I bang on about it all the time, but you need the strength, you need the low recoil. And in terms of the makeup of this stock and the features, it's absolutely going to give you both those things. Very straight through the head, very, very strong. But we've also got some nice figuring, I think this is European walnut. I'm not entirely sure whether Zoli manufacture their own stocks or they buy them in. I couldn't confirm or deny that. I know they do offer a custom stock facility because a customer of mine is actually going out to Zoli in a few months' time to have a Zoli made. In terms of the thickness of the comb, really, really good. You get some guns that are a little bit skinny and it doesn't really suit the lines of the gun, and it doesn't really aid with anything in terms of the adjustment of the rib. There's a good amount of thickness in the top of that comb to give you a good positive cheek hole, good positive pressure, and without sort of digging in, and also without the need really to roll your head unnaturally. I do like that design of that comb. It's Zoli's own design, easy to adjust, just with the simple Allen key, and that pretty much wraps up the stock. It feels good, it looks good, it goes nicely with the line of the gun, and you have to say, picking this gun up, feeling it, opening it, closing it, you could understand why in the last sort of 15 years the Zoli brand here in the UK has gone from strength to strength. Now the forend is an interesting one with me. I like beaver tail forends. This gun has the appearance of a sport stroke trap gun. Personally, I'd have had a beaver tail forend. Zoli tend to, with all of their Z Sports, typically I should say, put a rounded forend on, which, you know, is not offensive. I would prefer a beaver tail, but it is still quite chunky, and of course it hasn't got the lip of a schnabel, which more and more people seem to find a bit annoying. Right, moving on to the box, and again we've got this really, really nice big Z logo that, you know, means when you get to whatever airport, when you're shooting abroad, it comes around the carousel, you'll instantly recognize the fact that it's a Z. Should they put the word gun on it? Maybe not. One thing I would say from a personal point of view is, having visited the factory 25 years ago, it's quite interesting because Zoli in the 80s, you know, didn't have the best reputation. There was Angelo and Antonio. This is Antonio. They jobbed out some cheap rubbish like a lot of people did back then, and it's all about reputation. But I think it's nice the fact that they've tried to elevate the brand, make it more appealing, make it better, you know, work on technology and evolve the brand to where it is now. And like I said, in the States, yes, you could argue that in America there's a lot more people and McDonald's sell a lot more burgers, but they are huge over there, and they're getting bigger and bigger in the UK all the time because it is a good gun. Right, back to the case. We've got a silver case, a bit like a DT11 case, to be fair. They obviously buy them all from the same paint shop. Blue velour with the Z gun again. It's nice. It's a Negrini case. They all are. God, I wouldn't mind being a pound behind Mr. Negrini, would you? And we've got barrel socks in the blue finish again. It's worth pointing out, although this gun has got a black action, they are also available in a nickel finish, not dissimilar to the kind of the Perazzi offering, although it's a little bit more polished. And also, if you look on the Zoli website, I was absolutely gobsmacked. You can have the Z in all the colours of the rainbow, and they'll do all sorts of different finishes. They've got a case colour harder one, a dark side. And I think that's the thing with some of these smaller manufacturers. They will do, to a point, exactly what you want, because they have the time and they have the facilities to just offer that more, not completely bespoke service, but much more bespoke than you'll get from a mainstream manufacturer. Interestingly enough, with this gun, we haven't got all the bits and pieces yet. It's just come through the door. I wanted to show it you. So we'll start with the spares kit. So what you would typically get is you will get spare springs, spare firing pins, and a spare cocking dog. That's not something I've just made up. That's a real thing. Some of those pieces have been used on this gun, or they're missing. You do get the Allen key to remove the trigger group. So the actual trigger group assembly removal, there's a mouthful, isn't a question of pushing the selector forward like on a DT10 or an MX8 or anything. You have got to physically remove it with an Allen key, which does make it a bit more secure, you could argue, because if you've got really fat, heavy thumbs and you push your selector too far forward, your trigger will fall out on some of those other guns I've mentioned. Choke-wise, they typically come with 5 of these. I believe Zoli claim that they're titanium, but that might just be relating to the colour of the band, because they don't feel that light. They do feel like steel. Nicely laser engraved with the choke denomination, so you know exactly what you put in your gun. And that is pretty much it. So you do get a spares kit, you do get some chokes. Now, one of the things that's very impressive is here in the UK is if you buy a Zoli, I think the warranty is 10 years. Like I said, they can take you out to the factory. They're one of these manufacturers now that do offer a B2C service, which is kind of like the end user experience of a custom shotgun. And it was one of those things, I wanted to show it to you. They are getting bigger and bigger in the UK all the time. There's a lot of people shooting them. There's a shoot I go to regularly. I probably see, out of 100 shooters, probably see 6 or 7 Zolis, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you went back 20 years, you wouldn't see one. One final point on the case, I think it's really nice that they've managed to keep it so compact, the fact that it's a 32-inch barrel, because from memory, if I had a DT11 box here, it would cover most of the mat. It's a small point, but it makes a difference to someone who's got a small boot. So that's the Zoli Z Sport High Rib from me, Matthew Morgan, here at Eastfield Gunroom. If you've got any questions about this particular gun, please do feel free to contact me directly. Details are on the screen. Do check out the website. If you've got any questions about Zoli, comment below. Have you got a Zoli? Have your friends got a Zoli? Be interesting to know what you think of this gun, because like I said, they are becoming more and more popular all the time. Let's face it, here in the UK, I've said it many times, there's an awful lot of competition at this price point in particular. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you have enjoyed this video. If you haven't, I'm really sorry, but do tune in next week and I'll do my best to try and impress you then. As ever, this video is proudly sponsored by the British Shooting Show, the largest event in the British shooting calendar. And from me, an up-and-coming rising star, I'll see you next week.